Joining me now in his usual Monday spot is the host of Greenlight Podcast, two-time Super Bowl champion, Chris Long. How you doing, Christopher?
Rich, what's up, man? How are you?
All right, we are now post-Thanksgiving. This just in, can confirm. We are now 12 weeks into the NFL season, with all due respect to the Steelers and the Colts. It does appear that they're only going to be on the outside looking in. Your thought on the best team in the NFL through 12 weeks is?
It's the Chiefs. It's the Chiefs. They're so good. They're nice about beating, my Wahoo brethren, Bryce Perkins. They took it easy on the Rams yesterday. But I still think they're the best team in the league, and it's because of that defense too. I mean, like they have a chance. People do these power rankings, and I think they're kind of dumb, even though we just did one on our show.
You know what? I think they're dumb too, and I'm a total really I'm a convert, though. I like doing it every week now. I can't believe I waited 8 years to do it.
You come in on Monday, you're like, it's nice to have your work done for you. Okay, I know I got to just do a power rankings. Like, what does that even mean? But you have a lot of power if you're the one seed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they're the one seed right now. And, if the road to the Super Bowl goes through Arrowhead, even though the Bills went in there and beat them earlier this year, I think, it makes it hard. And so, I think the way that defense shows up there, the energy they play with, and obviously Patrick Mahomes is why I think they're the best team in the league. Yeah,
I mean, Mahomes and Kelsey, that's going to be a phrase we use, like Brady and Gronk, a phrase that we use like Marino to Clayton or Marino to Duper or Manning to Harrison. Like, this is what we're watching right now. Mahomes to Kelsey. That's what we're watching unfold. Happened again.
No, it's incredible. And, the moment last week in prime time, just kind of underscores that. With the game on the line, it's just it's automatic. I talked about they're not just great, they're fun. They're like one of the most fun duos I've ever seen throwing and catching the ball. And they seem like they got a great rapport. So I think they're the best team in the league. I think the Eagles, I'll still give them the tie break over the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are a really good team. They're in my top 5 as well. But, if the question pertains to what I saw from the Eagles last night, the Eagles' run defense concerns me. It does. I can't confidently say, hey, you're the best team in the league right now because you're not doing this thing. But what you do have is you have home field advantage right now. You just ran the ball for 300 yards on the Packers. You've blown out the Vikings. The resume, it's hard to find a team with a really deep, great resume. But I'll take the Eagles at face value, and I think they're one of the best teams in the league.
Well, I mean, just the way that they can run the football, the way that Jalen Hurts can run it and absolutely throw it, and now last week, this is kind of what I said at the top of the program as well. Last week in Indianapolis, they pulled out one on the road that looked pretty bleak. Last night, they took on a Packers team and watched the Packers come back on them and then just kept running all over them. Hurts can throw it and he can run it, and then there's others who can run it. That line up front is dynamite. So I'm with you on the Eagles front as the best team in the NFC. The Niners just keep on yelling at me. The
Niners are great, Rich. I mean, the Niners, the January version of the Niners is scary, and in January they might be the best team in the NFC. I want to see them do this a little bit more consistently. They got a great test coming up this week, right? They play the Dolphins at home. Dolphins don't have Teron Armstead. They're one of the hottest teams in football. They're probably the hottest team in football, but the question's been hey, I want to see you play a really good defense. Well, here you have it. And I know they played good defenses. They've beaten the Bills. They've beaten the Ravens, albeit these teams were in different spots than they are now. But, this is going to be a great test this weekend. And, if you're looking at the top 5 to 7 teams in the league, you're going to know a lot more about these two teams, the Niners and the Dolphins, after this weekend. So I still have the Bills up there for me, Rich. I think the Bills are top 3 team in the league. I don't care what they've looked like the last month, because that team that throttled the Titans, the team that did everything they did to beat the Chiefs, they weren't healthy, but they did a good job against Miami defensively. I still think that team's in there. So I trust them. I'll buy them low with the way Josh is playing. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, Power Rankings just broke out.
Chris Long right here on the Rich Eisen Show here on a busy Monday, Week 12 in the NFL concluding tonight with the Colts and the Steelers. So let's talk about the 2-12s here because the narratives are beginning to be etched in stone, certainly for Aaron Rodgers, now 4-8. He says that he still is up for playing because they're not mathematically eliminated. Broken thumb. He said he had trouble breathing a little bit last night. And I know the way that this world works, man. I know the way that this industry works. To me, one of the biggest overreactions on this Monday, and I don't know if my colleague Chris Brockman's going to include it in his yet because we haven't done it yet.
You can bet your ass I will,
okay,
Rich.
Is that the way that Jordan Love threw it around last night when Rodgers went out shows you it's time to turn the page there in Green Bay. Your thoughts on that subject matter, Chris?
Well, I mean, listen, I thought before the trade deadline I think Aaron Rodgers is still great, right? Like the first half of that game before, whatever it was with the rib or the lung, with the broken thumb. And, when a guy says, like, hey, my thumb's broken, like, he's going to go out and torch the team, right? Because you're not going to tell people your thumb's broken when it's hurting the worst, right? So I wasn't surprised that he continued to look good. I mean, there was a little dip in play over the last couple of weeks, but this year he's put the ball on target. There just hadn't been a lot of separation. Like, he's made mistakes, sure, but he's still Aaron Rodgers. And, like, if you don't believe me, let him hit the trade market this offseason. Look at the haul that you would get for somebody like that. And, at the deadline, I was saying, hey, maybe it's time to move on because the guy still got it, but it's just not working. Like, you can just feel like it's not working. They had such a great team last year. They go, they have San Francisco at home. They can't beat them. If you told me, and I know it's snowing and everything, but all you got to do is score like 17 points to beat the Niners. You can't do that. This year it hasn't worked out. Christian Watson looks like he's going to be a lot of fun in the future. Mm-hmm. Romeo Doubs looks like he's going to be a lot of fun in the future, and he's hurt right now. Your run game's pretty solid, right? But I just don't know, man. It might be time to get out, and it might not matter what Jordan Love looks like. And I didn't see enough about Jordan Love last night to really feel great. Like it's just Eagles in soft coverage.
Right.
It's one drive. But, hey, if all you got to do is run Christian Watson across the field,
that's right,
and he's got to outrun some poor guy who's at a standstill watching that big SOB, running sideways across the zone, or you got to pick him up. And, man, like if we feel good about our weapons and we feel good about Jordan Love to the point where, like, we can move Aaron Rodgers, I don't think that's the craziest thing in the world. I think Aaron Rodgers would go for a haul, right? And you could kind of reset with the quarterback if you like him enough.
And then there's what 12 and Tampa's thinking today. I keep on asking you this, it seems like every 3 weeks. But yesterday, it was the first loss in his career in which he led by 7 with 2 and change to go. He's never had a loss like the one that he and the Bucs just suffered in Cleveland, Ohio. And then, to be taken off the field, 4th and 2 from the Cleveland 37, and being told, take a delay of game so we could punt it better. I sat there, I'm shaking my head, and I'm a big Todd Bowles fan, man. I rooted for him for the Jets. I just saw him in Munich. I love just his demeanor, where you don't know if you're winning, you're losing, and I think that's a winning demeanor for a coach or a manager in baseball. But it's just sometimes you feel like the next risk he takes is going to be his first. And you got Tom Brady. Like, what are you doing? And I'm wondering what Brady's thinking off of all that.
I don't know. It'd be hard to retire after a year like this, wouldn't it?
I think. I mean, you wouldn't want to go out like this, but the like this still, he's leading the division, right? I mean,
no, I know.
He's leading the division, and he may have a home playoff game against the Cowboys, and
which there's no chance that they win a playoff game at home or on the road if they don't have Tristan Wirfs, and I hear he's going to be back for the playoffs and that sort of thing, but. I thought yesterday it was interesting. I mean, like, what was a bigger deal, losing that game or potentially losing Tristan Wirfs? I think it was potentially losing Tristan Wirfs. Myles Garrett single-handedly kind of won that game for them late, whether it was backed up, forcing a punt, like they're rushing 3, I think it was, and he still won. It allowed for that Circus Njoku catch, which was just brutal, especially if you had the Bucs. It was brutal. And then you get into overtime, and Brady's got chances late in this game. I mean, whether it was in the second half, missing Godwin in plus territory on a chunk play that would have put them at like the 30. They're up 7 at that point. Like, that'll do. 20-10 will do, right? But you missed that throw. You know, him and Evans were a little bit off. So I think everybody shares a little bit of the blame. Like, but you get into overtime and you got a chance again to get into field goal range and kick. And, you know, Brady's doing a Brett Favre thing. He's flipping the ball straight ahead. That play gets moved back because of Donovan Smith hands to the face on Myles Garrett, so he's disruptive there. Then it's 3rd and 14. He gets sacked there. They're trying to chip him. Like, you can't run the ball. Rashard White goes for 30 yards on one run in the first quarter. He's got 40-something yards in the first quarter. And then the rest of the game, look at his carries and the yardage, like it was under 10 yards a quarter. I don't think he topped 10 yards. Third quarter he had 11 yards on 4 carries. But they can't run the ball, right? They can't protect Brady. So you can't close games out when you have a lead. And good luck if you're down. So I don't know, man. Like, that defense can only be so good. It's ugly.
So you think that? Well, I guess again, there's still so much time to go here.
No, Rich.
There really is so much time to go.
No. My answer's no. No.
He can't retire off of something like this, is what you're saying.
No, he can't. No, he can't retire off something like this. And I don't. You know, it's funny when we do this every week, and like I got to do this on my show every week, and like, you know, we come back to it every Sunday. It's like, okay, do we count Rodgers out? Do we count Brady out? And I know that mathematically, because they're not eliminated, we're going to be asking this question all year with Brady. But I'll give you the same answer. Like, I'm counting the Bucs out. Like, they just there's too many deficiencies. You know, you want to ask me if they can win a playoff game, maybe. But you can't tell me that they're gonna go on a 3-4 game run in January with the horses they've got. You know, like, they can't run the ball. They can't protect this guy. You know, it's tough, man. It's tough to watch. It's tough to watch. It's the Browns, man.
Chris Long here.
Look what the Dolphins just made the Browns look like.
And I hear you. And the Dolphins are one of those teams that nobody really mentions because I guess why? They feel that Tua is not a long-term threat, a playoff threat, that, you know, weather threat. I mean, let's talk a little bit about the Dolphins here. I mean, you know, and if we wouldn't mind, Mr. Hoskins, put their schedule up, because we've been talking about this for a while on this program. Because I called Tua elite a month ago. The way that he's playing, he is an elite quarterback in the NFL this year, like truly up there with the Mahomeses and Allens and anyone else that you consider elite. But we were always saying the last 6 games of the year is when the rubber will meet the road. 3 games in a row now, at San Francisco, at the Chargers, at Buffalo, home for Green Bay on Christmas, then at the Patriots, home for the Jets. What do you think of the Dolphins' shots right now? They're 8-3, sitting right there. Number 2 in the AFC going into Week 13. Chris?
Well, they've won every game that Tua started. You know, I think the Cincy game probably would have gone south. They didn't look real sharp that night, but he got hurt. Listen, we just did our power rankings. I had them at like 6, you know, the almighty power rankings. And, you know, one of the things that concerns me about them, and they play without Armstead, is they got to go to San Francisco this week. As you mentioned, this 3-game road trip. It's going to be really challenging for them. And, you know, they're going to be down Armstead. They're going to have to deal with that defense. This is going to be – I'm really excited to see – it's been a while. Like, they stood tall when they played the Bills. Now, Bills were banged up. They beat the Bills. They came back against the Ravens. So they've beaten good teams so far this year. It's just been a while, you know. And I can't wait to see a matchup where Tua, who's played excellent, has an opportunity to prove, you know, who he is against, like, a group full of Fred Warners and Nick Bosa's. Like, it's just, this is going to be a different challenge. I'll give it to them. They've been covering every week. You know, these enormous lines, and they've covered every week, and they're so fun to watch. That offense is so fun to watch. But this stretch is going to define them. You know, make no mistake about it. If they can come out of this stretch unscathed, then as a team, I can talk about them like I talk about the Chiefs, or like I talk about the Eagles, or like I talk about the Bills. And I know the Bills have not played as well as the Dolphins. I know they haven't played as well as the Dolphins. But I really do believe the ceiling of a Bills team is higher, and we'll look at that. When they play again in December. I think the Dolphins are great. I can't wait for this weekend.
And then last one for you here, Chris Long, is your concern level on the Ravens right now, sitting there at 7-4. They just lost in Jacksonville. Clearly, the best game of Trevor Lawrence's young career, and then not just the way they lost, but the tweet that Lamar sent out that was definitely not safe for work, responding to somebody who criticized him on Twitter. What's your concern level about the Baltimore Ravens right now on all fronts?
I think the Ravens are a really good team. They've had a lead, and they've had a possession or more than one possession lead, I think, in all their games, which I've read it 3 times, and I want to go back after this interview to make sure that I'm not butchering that. It's just so hard to believe. And of all the teams that have ever been like that through this span, their record's the worst one by far, because they've blown them. And, when you blow leads, when you don't score in the red zone, they were 1-4 last week in the red zone against the Panthers. You're kind of like, they'll figure it out this week. Well, no, I mean, here's what I'm worried about with the Ravens. When you're on the road and you have a chance to put a team like that away, right, it kind of comes back to letting teams back in the game. You kicked 2 field goals the first 2 scoring drives. Well, you had a drop in the end zone on the second one. You overthrow a touchdown in the first one. And the first one, and I love Lamar, but that's a ball that he's got to hit. He knows he's got to hit. He hasn't had the best year by his standards, especially in big spots. If you hit that ball on the road and you go up 7-0 and you're driving the next possession, you go up 14-0, how different does that game feel? Even with how many leads you've blown, you're staring at Trevor Lawrence on the other sideline, who had a great game yesterday in the second half, especially. You got to put teams away, man. And when you get in the red zone, I think it is a lack of talent. I mean, you could say, well, they got Mark Andrews, and you got a running quarterback, and you got a tight end in the red zone. That sounds great, right? That's cliche red zone stuff. But who are the other guys, man? And we were just talking about this on our show. They haven't made a move. Deshaun Jackson is not somebody to me that's going to move the needle in a huge way at this stage in his career. I know he caught a beautiful throw yesterday from Lamar. That was just an absolute rocket. But when you get in the red zone, it's not working. And yesterday we saw more of the same. You can't close teams out. You can't win your 4-point plays down there in the red area. That's a tough one, man. And I actually ranked the Bengals ahead of them just because Joe Burrow is playing better. And I had concerns about the Bengals and their physicality coming into the year. They won a physical game yesterday. They beat the Titans at their game. They were down Mixon. They were down Chase. They ran the ball. They stopped the run. All their safeties, all their corners, they are all willing participants in the run game. And when you play complete complementary football like that, it just looks less disjointed. The Ravens look kind of disjointed. And they got an easy schedule the rest of the way, so they could cruise. But they've proven that, whether it's the Panthers game or the Jags game, there's nothing easy about the Ravens right now.
I lied. I have one last thing for you, Chris Long. Actually, there's 2. Screw it. Because we talked so much about Zach Wilson last week. Robert Saleh pushed that button on Mike White. He's earned the right to start for a while, don't you think? I mean, even if they go to Minnesota and lose that game and struggle on offense, he's shown it. He's shown how it can work.
I think it's a hot hand offense now. I think Saleh is just – I totally support what he did. Listen, this is not the end of Zach Wilson. I think he's being honest when he says, this kid's got a lot of talent. I think everybody knows that. He's played awful, and I don't think people's leashes should be, exponentially longer because you are a draft pick, but that's the reality of the situation. And I think now it's a hot hand type of thing. I think it's, hey, if Mike White's playing well, you keep Mike White in. If Mike White has a bad game, okay. If he has 2 bad games in a row, maybe it's Flacco. Maybe it's Zach Wilson. You have kind of burnt the ships on conventional, like, this is our quarterback going in the playoffs. You know, this is a team in a really unique position. You know, to be this stacked defensively, although, you know, Getsy, when Simeon was on script yesterday, it was terrifying. The first 15 plays of the game.
Yeah.
It was scary as hell, wasn't it, Rich? I mean, like...
Well, yeah, the Jets' defense was on its heels, and I thought like it was going to be one of those days, but with the rain coming down, certainly when Greg Zuerlein was trying a game-tying field goal and the ball can't even be placed in front of him, and then it's dipsy-do, and, you know, it was like NFL Films Follies broke out. I'm like, oh, it's one of those days. But Mike White was terrific. He was on time, he was on schedule, and he was terrific. He was exactly what they want in this offense. And Elijah Moore, we saw proof of life. You know, like there was, it existed. And that's why I sat there and thought, well, hopefully Zach Wilson is sitting there taking mental notes if he is, in fact, going to be the guy again. Because if Mike White plays like this, Zach Wilson's not the guy again. It's that simple.
And when I say Zach Wilson's career is not over, I don't know that it's going to be here. He's going to get another shot or anything. But I really do think this team, I saw some people saying, oh, you're not helping Zach Wilson's development. Like, you know, people can't come back from that. Well, hey, dude, all right, like when I was a second-year player, I got benched. Okay, I was a high draft pick, got benched. Bench for a defensive end is different, though, because you just basically don't run out of the tunnel, and we're still taking 40, 50 snaps a game in a rotation. But the bottom line is, like, I was able to kind of figure it out and, you know, the next 4 years turn my career around. This kid can do that. Like, it's not impossible. But for this football team right now, his mental struggles are irrelevant, right? And I also thought he did a really good job. I kind of killed him last week, right? Because it pissed me off as a defensive player. But, you know, he got up there, he stood tall during the week. It's not like, you know, it's an irredeemable mistake, but what it is a mistake coupled with the play on the field, because that's the bottom line. It's like when you look at the numbers, he's been really bad. That hinders this team's chances of making a run, and they're really good. They're really good in a lot of areas, and you don't waste windows, man. Like, I don't care if the window just opened or if you're on the tail end of it. You owe it to the other players to play the best quarterback, and that includes Joe Flacco if it's Joe Flacco. So I think Robert Saleh did the right thing in going to somebody else, and Mike White carved up the Bears. That's great. Let's not get out over our skis. Like, you know, if this happens for a couple weeks, he's your guy. But I don't think it's solidified that, like, hey, it's going to be Mike White every game this year. I do think they have an open mind.
Last one for you, Chris, if you want to make it a quick hitter, because I know we've been talking a while here. Mike Purcell, the defensive tackle of the Broncos, clearly was barking at Russell Wilson. It was either the most demonstrative let's go or something completely revealing, you know. Yeah, it's definitely not let's ride, okay? So you want to interpret that for me? You've been on the field, you've been part of this stuff where it looks like somebody's angry, but it isn't. You want to? What's your take on that?
He was mad. You know, it's like body language. You see it. We saw it last week with Zach Wilson and his receivers going palms up when he's missing throws. Like, that frustration at Russell Wilson's real. Like, I don't know what it was exactly, but you're not yelling at a guy if the elephant in the room isn't there. And, like, the elephant in the room is there in Denver. Like, you can't tell me it's not. These guys, like, it's all we're talking about. Don't you think they're talking about it? Like, we just got beat by Sam Darnold. You know? Sam Darnold, who I'm happy for him. He threw some nice balls yesterday. But and I know Steve Wilkes at 3-0 at home, and that should be the story and the whole thing, but I've never seen anything like it. And this is not like – one thing that's interesting, Rich, is when it comes to the Broncos, like, are we holding this against Russ's legacy, like, as a player? Because that kind of sucks. You know, it's not like Joe Montana going to play for, like, the Chiefs. This is like a 7-year commitment. So there's no escape. So what is it going to look like for Russell Wilson, the player, like when we evaluate him and all the great years he's had, if the second half of his career looks like this, when he said, hey, I want to play into my 40s, like I'm not washed, I'm not old, like this is me. So it's crazy. I don't know what to make of it.
All right, brother. Great chat, as always. Who's on your pod this week? What do you got for me?
Seat of our pants week, Rich. No idea.
Okay. Fantastic. Can't wait.
I took the Thanksgiving break a little too literally, and you took a break all the way through the weekend. Haven't gotten prepared. So
excellent.
Appreciate you.
When I see it, I'll retweet it then. When I see it, I'll retweet it. Chris Long, Greenlight Podcast, where all podcasts can be acquired right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.